It's a debate, and it's next right here on Arizona Horizon.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the special Election 2022 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight, we feature a debate between the candidates for Arizona's 7th Congressional District, which covers southwestern Arizona along with parts of Maricopa, Pima, and 4 other counties. Tonight's debate is not a formal exercise. It's an open exchange of ideas, an opportunity for give and take between candidates for one of the state's most important federal offices. Dialogue between the candidates is encouraged, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we'll do our best to ensure that happens. Candidates will give opening statements in a randomly selected order, and later will give closing statements in the opposite order. And joining us now for tonight's debate, Democrat Raul Grijalva, who is currently representing Arizona's 3rd Congressional District, and Republican Luis Pozzolo, a small business owner. Let's get things started with opening statements, and we begin with Luis Pozzolo.
My name is Luis Pozzolo. I'm an immigrant. I'm a naturalized citizen. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I am running for Congress because, as a lot of you, we are fed up with what this government is doing to us. We have problems. I think it's no rotation in Congress especially, and we're looking for people who can renovate and bring new ideas on top of the table for you. I'm a proud American. I'm American by choice, and for that reason, even when I decided in the past to don't be involved in politics, I decided to run for Congressional District number 7. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And now the opening statement from Raul Grijalva.
Thank you very much. You know, this election, we're going to see a lot of mining of fear, resentment, prejudice, unsubstantiated grievance, and the underpinnings of this election and the one coming up in 2024 is significant and consequential. The underpinnings are the big lie. And the other underpinning is what the violent insurrection that happened January 6th in the U.S. Capitol. I'm running because I want to protect our democracy, and I want to return to Congress to continue to lead in protecting our democracy and everybody's individual rights in this country.
All right, thank you both very much. Let's get things started with some questions here. Luis, we'll start with you. You're running against an experienced congressman, someone who knows his way around Washington. Why?
Well, I believe we have, especially in Congressional District 7, we have a lot of problems. You know, have the border problem, the unemployment, mining problems, water problems. Congressman Grijalva had 20 years to solve those issues. He has not done that. Washington became a machine, a Hollywood machine, in where politicians stay there forever and don't bring solutions to the people. I'm planning to go there not to represent the party or represent a big interest. I'm going over there to represent the people of the district.
Is it time for a change in this particular district?
I think one could say that, you know, Grijalva's been there too long, and maybe it's time to get a younger person there. And I would say no. You know, Robert Kennedy said that age is not about time, that it's about the mind. And I think what we're confronting in this country is really, really significant. And it's not just a question of experience, it's a question of the values that you bring into that. And one of the reasons that people support me and that they've been gracious enough to keep me in this job over all these years is the very fact that what I say to them in terms of what the value is, what my public position is, and what I'm working is, I've been consistent about that. And the hardest thing in politics is to be consistent. I'm not a fly. I didn't jump into this situation. I've lived in this district my whole life. My grandchildren is growing up in this district. I didn't import myself into this district. This is where I grew up. This is where I've given my service to, and I think the problems that the district has are not singular. They're not there's not one person responsibility. It is a responsibility, including the Trump administration, who failed to invest one penny into any of the things that this district needs.
And I want to get to some of those issues, water especially, but to the economy as well. But we got to start with you saying that you did not represent the party necessarily. Now, many in the Republican Party are saying that the last election was in some way, shape, or form stolen, rigged, cheated out of a Donald Trump victory. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't have all the proof in front of me. I'm a business analyst, certified by Microsoft. I did a lot of business analysis and data analysis for big companies. I don't have the data to say yes or no on that. We have problems. Absolutely, we have problems. We have people that have been indicted for ballot harvesting in our district. A lot of people in San Luis, Yuma, people from the party that Raul Grijalva belong, they've been indicted and pled guilty of harvesting. How much a harvesting can affect an election, I don't know. I don't have the data in front of me.
I was going to say this, most of what we're talking about here involved a primary election, and was this in any way, shape, or form going to change the results of Arizona's election results?
I don't know. I don't have the data in front of me.
How do you respond to that?
Definitely. Biden is president, and he won it fair and square. And the fact that his opponent is yet to concede and created a big lie that has been one of the most destructive and dangerous threats to our democracy, yeah, we should be concerned about. But the election's over. And you know, I think one of the things that we learn in our democracy is that you accept that reality so that our democracy can keep functioning. And when you question that, after 66 courts said that the election was fair, after certification, including in the state of Arizona, to continue to promote doubt as to the integrity of our democracy in this election, I think is a disservice.
Would you have voted to certify Arizona's election results if you had been in Congress?
Well, let me go back to 2017, because in 2020, it looked like it became a crime to try to challenge the certification of election. He challenged the certification of North Carolina election in 2017. So he challenged the election too.
But would you have challenged Arizona's election results?
Yes.
You would have?
I will.
Under what evidence?
I think the evidence is in the audit. It's a lot of flaws on the election, especially on the way the data is controlled and the data is secure in the servers. You know, I work with 40 years in IT, and I see horrible things happening, especially in Maricopa. You know, in the Maricopa system, where people share the same password, when a lot of people can delete files into a server. There's a lot of things we need to look into. If that was enough to change, I don't know. But we have problems that we need to look into, yes.
Too many questions, too many problems with the election.
No, I think that investing in a fair and open election is what Democrats in Congress attempted to do, to increase the accessibility and the people's right to vote. But what we see opposite from the Republicans in this legislature and nationally is to restrict voting, to make it more difficult, to put barriers in front of people's access. And I think the less accessible our democracy becomes, the more control fewer people have, and the more extreme that ideology becomes. The wider the net in our democracy, the better it functions for our government. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to invest in making sure that everybody has the right to and the access to vote.
Is that net, can that net be so wide as to invite fraud?
You know, the reference that my opponent made to Yuma, 4 ballots, pleaded guilty. And, you know, I find it interesting that even some of the most pronounced deniers that are on the state ballot of the election of the last election, 2020, you know, pretty comfortable accepting their primary win so they can run in the general. If fraud is so rampant, then obviously they don't question their own victories. They only question anybody else's victory.
When does election security start intersecting with voter rights problems, with the lack of access, with just not getting people out there to vote who can and should vote?
Well, I think we need to start, you know, specifying who can vote in an election. I think anybody who is a citizen of this country, who is 18 years old, can vote one time per election cycle. I don't see that as a restriction. The problem that now we want everybody to vote, Let's say if I was running for office in Mexico and I invite half of the Guatemala people to come and vote into Mexico to turn the election in my side, that would be good. I think only people who are citizens over 18 years old have the right to vote one time per election cycle. And we need to be sure that that happens in that way. I don't want people that are not citizens of this country voting here. It took me 10 years of my life to become a citizen here and to have the right to vote and be part of this democracy.
Do you think the Democratic Party wants that?
I don't know. You should ask him.
Well, I'm asking you. Do you think they want
I
that?
don't know what they want because they always are too vague in the way they handle the information. But basically, same thing with voter ID. Every country southern from this border, every country, even the country I was born, have voter IDs, and nobody have a problem. Everybody can access that. I was able to have a voter ID myself, even being brown and Latino and immigrant, and having this accent. I was able to reach and be able to register in Kentucky, in Texas, and here.
Common sense solutions is what I'm hearing over here needed to make sure that election security exists.
Common sense, and I agree. I agree with my opponent. The only people that should vote in our elections are eligible people, citizens like both of us, and that's who should vote. Here's where the one-trick pony ends. The fact that the concentrated efforts to limit access, whether it's vote by mail, same-day registration, and barriers put in front of protected classes, i.e. people of color, disabilities, etc. Those barriers are being done across the country by legislatures in Texas, in Arizona. And what I'm saying is that the right to vote for every citizen is sacrosanct.
Okay.
And the access has to be sacrosanct as well.
Okay, I want to move on to abortion rights. Would you vote to codify Roe v. Wade?
Absolutely.
Because?
Because one of the things that leads that decision and the fact that women in this country of ours, this great nation, are now essentially second-class citizens, second-class status, not having the full rights and prerogatives that every citizen and every person in this country should have. And the fact that this decision limits their right, their personal freedom to make choices on the full reproductive health question, including access and abortion, I think is a wrong. And all you're doing is raising and making sure that every American has equity, and you have to codify Roe versus Wade so that equity is protected for women.
Would you codify Roe v. Wade?
I believe the Supreme Court did the right thing. I think the states have the right to legislate according with abortion. What is not in the Constitution, it should not be, federal.
So you would leave it up to the states?
Yes.
So you would vote against a federal abortion rights bill?
Absolutely.
All right. Would there be limitations as far as what you would approve of? Rape, incest, these sorts of things?
I agree that yes, there are limitations there. That's a decision that the female with the doctor and the family, those are decisions that we need to take, yes.
Time limit, 15 weeks, conception, what works for you?
I believe 15 weeks for those three cases, yes.
Right now, based on the court decision in Pima County, we're operating, restricting women's access to full reproductive decisions based on a law here in Arizona that's 150 years old. And so, Senator Lindsey Graham wants to do a national ban on abortion, and not to protect freedoms, but to codify the second-class status of women in this country. That decision, it should not be at the political whim of a set of politicians in a given state to decide that for women. No, it should be a national freedom.
And real quickly, you said that I wouldn't codify Roe v. Wade, but you also would not put into federal law abortion bans. Mm-hmm. So you say just leave everything up to the states.
Yeah, every state, what is not in the Constitution need to be legislated by the state.
All right, and even if the state, again, says no exceptions for rape or incest?
Well, that's a fight we need to do at the state level.
Okay, state level. I want to talk about a statement on your website. The policies of Raul Grijalva his policies have devastated our economy.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means Raul Grijalva have a problem with businesses. Remember 2010, 1017 when he went to Mexico, called a boycott to businesses in our
Mexico.
district.
Here.
I didn't interrupt you, so please don't interrupt
wasn't
me.
in
When you-
Mexico.
I
Don't
give you
make
the
up-
right.
hold
to,
on,
you know,
hold on.
Yeah,
We can
I give you
give
the
you a
right.
chance.
Last time you told me you don't interrupt your opponent. So
Don't make stuff up.
yeah. So I'm not making a step up. You went over there to Mexico and you called, and everybody knows, for a boycott
Hold on.
to Arizona businesses. At the same time, you've been for 10 years fighting, for 20 years fighting against mining, trying to open businesses and create jobs in our district. The whole policy that Grijalva and his machine have in our district are basically devastating our businesses. Crime, drugs, unemployment rate going up. Businesses don't want to come over here. Who wants to invest in CD7 when the government is your enemy, when the government has red tape all over the place? I will not invest in and that's the way, I was planning to open one of my businesses in Pima County. The regulations are horrible. The insecurity is horrible.
All right, respond to that, please.
Well, there's not much of a response. First of all, it's a lie. I didn't call for a boycott when I was in Mexico. Trying to make that funny connection is kind of juvenile. But nevertheless, when I talked about it, I talked about it in D.C. And I went through that, and we dealt with it. And I have said that at the time that I was driven more by a great deal of anger over the decision that was made here that I found to be racist, 1070, and targeting a certain community regardless of legal status. If I had to, but I survived that, and have learned from that decision that I made then. So no, I don't think that. I think the economic situations and what I've fought for from the beginning is to invest in families, to have a fair tax code so that everybody pays their fair share. I've fought for employment training. We've got 20,000 new jobs have been created in the district since Biden got president. And so I believe that try to layer every grievance on a person without looking at the situation and not looking at themselves, and I'm talking about the Republican Party and their economic policies, is exactly the situation that has driven less resources and less attentions to our community.
What would you do to change the situation? I mean, how would you attract outside businesses? How would you incentivize trade with Mexico? What would you do differently?
What I would do, what I've been doing, I've been in Mexico several times, talking with traders, talking with brokers, talking with transportation, talking about with the infrastructure people to understand what the problems are in the port of entry, how we can increase trade that benefit both countries, not only Mexico, to benefit America. We need to bring distributors to the border, not have fast track where people can go through our port of entry very fast, but they don't invest any money into our district. We need to bring distributors over here. I think, I agree with him. If you're in California, you're a distributor. Gas prices are killing you, taxes killing you, labor rates are killing you. We have a chance to attract investment in our district, and it's not happening.
It's not happening, you're saying?
Of course not.
Okay, of course it's not happening, he says, attracting businesses to the district. Does he have a point?
Let's look at the investment level that we have in terms of the borderlands and the region that I think is horribly underutilized and not economic development attention or human infrastructure attention growth is given to it. That's what we need to do. That's the plan that needs to be developed. But the money that is being spent is going all toward a security enforcement only mentality without looking at the regional needs and the comprehensive needs. And to understand the pressure on the border, you have to understand that needs investment in every aspect, and that's not happening. $20 billion a year for DHS, boxcars on the border, sending, just talking about a fence, when in reality, this district, who has almost the entire U.S. border, needs investment in that region, and it's not happening, and it's not happening simply because of politics and nothing else.
Real quickly.
Can I answer to that?
Yes, please.
Yes. So that's exactly why I'm running to office. He doesn't get it. He's always about redistribution, which is a socialist process. It's always about the government taking money away from people who earn the money and invest that money somewhere else. I think we just need to cut regulations and leave free markets to act in southern Arizona. It's been too long without free markets really act over there. If the government stay away, we cut regulations, we do grants to help people to come and invest in our district. We don't need to be doing this because every dollar the federal government is spending is taking it from somebody else.
Too much government regulation, too much government in southern Arizona and in this district in particular.
It's how you define too much government. I'm talking about investment. I'm talking about the equitable distribution of resources in this country. You know, when you have a corporation like GE, free market, okay, that doesn't pay 1 penny of federal taxes, when you have a former president that has cheated on his taxes, when you have the ultra rich and the uber rich in this country not paying their fair share, that burden falling to working folk in this country, that's an upside down system. And one of the ways to create revenue to invest in American families is to make sure that everybody pays their fair share. It's not about robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's about getting Paul to pay some money as well.
Is everyone paying their fair share in taxes in this country? In this district in particular?
I will explain it this way. I agree in part with him. I believe in capitalism and free markets. I don't believe in cronies. I have a lot of cronies, not only in southern Arizona. Crony capitalism create that situation. But it's different than free markets and capitalism and middle-class business and small businesses having the chance to invest and having a system that really help them develop and create jobs. You know, those companies at the same time that you can say they are cheating on the taxes, they're creating millions of jobs a year.
Are you saying that that's a fair trade-off? What are you saying?
No, I'm not saying it's a fair trade. I'm saying we need to enforce our tax code with those peoples and change the tax codes to especially that type of people. But at the same time, if you're going to be prosecuting businesses and you're going to be harassing businesses all over the place, you're going to finish with, maybe with an America being a southern Arizona where the unemployment rate is higher than anywhere else.
We only have a couple of minutes left here, and I do want to get how you would plan to keep, how would you plan to secure water rights in Arizona?
Okay. The Department of Interior, the House and the Senate went along with it. There's a $4 billion investment that we helped negotiate, but they already have the authority, the Department of Interior, for upper and lower basin states to deal with this drought. It shouldn't just be the burden of Arizona to be the one that deals with reductions, because the reality is there is no real concentration of effort at many of the states, including Arizona, to deal with the reality of this drought. And that this drought continues. And the role of climate in that. And so I would say that the Bureau of Reclamation, the Department of Interior, have to take a much more proactive role in dictating, to some extent, what those plans need to be going forward.
What can you do as a congressman to facilitate that effort?
Well, I believe, the federal government should not be putting tears in Arizona water. What he's talking about, the water bill passed in 2004, basically, for example, in 2022, is asking Arizona to cut in 21% the water we are consuming, asking Mexico to cut 7%, it's asking Nevada to cut 8%, but it's not asking California to cut 8%. Maybe those cronies that he's talking about, like Stuart Resnick, they have a billionaire farmer over there, is doing that. So I don't think the Ministry of Interior, Secretary of Interior, should have a say in how we manage the water.
Then very
in Arizona.
quickly, who does have a say?
The state.
Should? The states
I think
only.
The state.
Well, what if the states disagree?
The state needs to take a decision how we use the water in our territory, not somebody sitting in Washington, D.C. telling us, oh, you need to cut 21% of the water, but you're telling California to cut 0.
30 seconds left.
So the state and this administration gives Saudi investors the right to pump all the water they want for alfalfa to export back to Saudi Arabia. Is that a good use of water? Is that a good, and it creates some revenue, but that is a good use. Those decisions continue to be made, and somebody has to step in and make corrective actions.
Okay, I got to step in right now and get to closing statements. Time now for closing statements.
Well, can I say that I agree with him on the Saudi situation? Yes, I agree with him.
All right, there we go. Time now for closing statements, and going in the reverse order of our opening remarks. We start with Raul Grijalva.
I've had the privilege to represent this district, and I want to continue to do that. And I want to continue to do that because I think what's ahead of us is consequential. And like anything, it's not just simply about experience and time. It's also about capacity to be able to deal with the issues coming up. I'm a leader in Congress on the issue of confronting climate change and mitigating that and addressing that and going through a transition. I want to continue to do that. And the strategies of investment in American families and the growth of those American families and their children, I want to continue to do that. And on the fundamental question of democracy, voting, and individual rights and freedoms, if that fight is to continue, I want to be part of that fight. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And now the closing statement from Luis Pozzolo.
Well, thank you very much. I want to say thank you to Congressman Grijalva to be here. These are times where candidates don't show up to debates from both parties, and I disagree with that. I like the civility and the professional way this is our second debate, so I appreciate that. When I go to Washington, I want to be, I'm a guy who lived the American dream for the last 20 years. And now I want to help others. It is time for a change. The problems are getting bigger in our district. And I'm a guy who's going to go over there and fight for everybody, for more freedom, for more prosperity. We're going to fight inflation, gas prices, bring jobs to our community, stop fentanyl. When today we find out that Friday we got the biggest seizure of fentanyl in Congressional District number 7. So on November 9, I'm going to go and fight for you in Congress. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Our next debate will be Wednesday as we hear from the candidates running for Arizona Attorney General. That's Wednesday, September 28th at 5 and 10 p.m. right here on Arizona Horizon. And a reminder, you can watch this debate again on azpbs.org, where you can catch all past Arizona Horizon programming. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Meet Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony winner Rita Moreno, who found her good times after difficult ones.
I was treated like a sex object.
Look for Rita Moreno, just a girl who decided to go for it,
Unspeakably exciting.
on American Masters.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS.
Hello, I'm Adrienne Farewell, General Manager of Arizona